Alright, everybody. Hi, welcome to the stream. Today, we're going to be trying to see if it is indeed possible to do a Linux distro tier list without freaking exploding. Because I can't hear myself, or I couldn't hear myself before. Let me see if I can hear myself now. Just a second. Okay, yeah, my computer's audio sucks, but I can hear it. All right, welcome to the stream. Okay, there was a phantom viewer in the log for a second there. Anyway, the point of this stream is that um, basically, like it says in the description, everybody does a Linux distro tier list, and I want to be one of those people, and I'm going to put it on my website eventually, probably pretty soon. I'm feeling really productive today. You may notice that I published an article the day before yesterday, and I published another one yesterday. Um, and I cleaned up a bunch of other stuff this morning. Just a ton of activity. I've been busy. I've been finally like attending. I fixed my website so the theme doesn't look like utter trash. I do think it's a bit impersonal though. I want to maybe change it back to some degree. So yeah, um, what I want to do is like do a live voice recording of this stuff so I can put it on the Placey thing anyway, but I don't know how possible that is. I'm just gonna see there. Okay, you can still see me in DroidCam OBS. Yes, you can. All right, awesome. Now I am going to start a recording on the recording app on my phone. We're gonna see if the stream keeps also working at the same time. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. And let me play that. And welcome to the recording. I am recording a test. This is a test of the recording to make sure that it records by. All right, that does work, and it also has a live, or not live, but it has a transcript there, and it also does live transcribe, and it like fixes itself in real time, which is pretty cool. So we're just gonna delete that, and the last one too, and yeah, I have a whole bunch of recordings because I've been like recording my random thoughts on life and stuff. So I'm gonna try to not upload any of those by accident because they're kind of a little bit too personal for this. But my plan is I'm gonna record like my thoughts on each distro, and that's going those recordings like the app will export them to a Google Doc, and then I can copy that Google Doc into Emacs and then turn it into an article on my website. So that's what I'm gonna do. So we've got this tier maker here. There were a few different tier makers, but this is the one I happened to click on, so it's the one we're going to use. Um, what are my thoughts on... First of all, this tier list here is a little bit bland. I want to change this one to be something like don't care, don't even care. There we go. I like that. Um, I'm worried about scrolling here because if I scroll, it messes the scrolling up. I only got it right by like dragging this little bar on the side, which you should never have to drag that little bar on the side. Come on. But my mouse goes in these awkward increments. Oh, there it actually went it back. Okay. So we've got S tier, there's A tier, B, C, D, and F. I never understand why there is not um, add a row below. Make it, I don't know, this color, or wait, so we want D to be, I guess, kind of bland green. And then I want the new tier, which is E tier, to be um, like purple. There we go. I like having an E tier. I don't understand why E is not like a valid grade that they usually give things. Okay, can I split my apps? There we go. I can split them. I can split them. Yes, I can on my phone, so I can see both the recording and the other thing at once. So I guess we should say S is for superior, A is for pretty good, B is for both using it and not using it are like whatever. C is could have been okay. Um, D is dumb. E is everyone who uses this has only used Linux for like 2 months or less. F is a failure and don't even care tier is of course I don't even care. I don't know. Doesn't even matter. Or probably matters is probably kind of cool. Um, and there are a whole bunch of other. Um, is there a way to add another thingy onto there? I don't know how you do that. Maybe if I add a. Maybe if I go to another window and I search up. Like, let's say I want to do. Um, let's say I want to. Images.google.com and I want to search Windows 11 logo and I'll just click no, not that one. I want a square one. What's a square one? Tools, size, medium, I guess. Type, um, color, um, don't care. Okay, how about this? This is a logo. Okay, probably a bit large, but I want to see what works. And then I'm going to drag this logo all the way over to here. And that doesn't work. How do we help how to add a thingy to presentation mode. Okay, this is about what I wanted. I don't know how to add things. I don't know how to add distros down here, but I want to. That seems like the kind of thing that should be possible to do. Like I said, I just don't know how to. So we're gonna try that. So again, that's my basic ranking. Let's actually get into it now. First, I should talk about which distros among these I've actually used, which is most of them, I guess, maybe kind of partly for a little bit. All right, here we go. that. Okay. Oh, people, can you hear me? Alright, okay. I figured it out. So the reason that you can't hear me, well, welcome to the stream by the way, is that I had my recorder app open. I was intending to like record the voice of this as well and like transcribe it and copy it into Google Docs so I could like put it on my website or something. It doesn't really matter. I'm probably gonna just remember what I said anyway, and most of this stuff is like kind of irrelevant anyway. Anyway, let me walk you through because now I actually have a viewer. I have to like explain what's going on. So E tier here is like a tier I added myself because it wasn't in there for some. I don't understand why the alphabet rankings always just skip E. But the reason I put Solus in E tier is because like everyone who uses it has only been using Linux for 2 months. That is my definition for E tier. Let me actually just put that. There we go. Everyone who uses it is noob. So thank you. Um, Linux Mint I put in B tier because it's trying to do a lot and it mostly succeeds sometimes, but not always. It could be better. How's that? OpenBSD I put in B tier because like sure it's cool, but like everything you could do on BSD you can do on Linux, and lots of things that you can do on Linux you can also do in OpenBSD. So like for a server OS, there's basically no reason not to use Linux, like Ubuntu server or Debian or something. And for for desktop, like if you're going to use a BSD desktop, you're going to use FreeBSD because that's the desktop one. Uh, that's my thoughts on that. Oh dear, I hear something outside. Something might happen. Oh well, if something happens, then something happens. Doesn't matter. Elementary I put in C tier. It's just like an Ubuntu clone with a unique desktop. I think that trying to emulate another operating system with your UI is kind of an exercise in failure because no matter how much like macOS you look, you're never going to get to be macOS. Same thing with Linux Mint, but also it's just like too solid to not put it higher, I guess, because it's just literally just Ubuntu but without snaps, and like that's snaps kind of suck. I mean, some of the things that Mint does to get rid of snaps also suck, so it's like kind of trade off. Parabola I put in D tier because like Arch, it's just Arch but worse. Maybe there's some ideological. It's like vegans. Like sure, animals are being brutally slaughtered and most of the meat is being wasted, and it's horrible for the people who work in that field as well. Like, but at the same time, like I'm not gonna stop eating meat the just because the animals that I'm eating are being mistreated and the people who are chopping the meat up are also being mistreated. I'm just not going to think about that, right? I'd rather not think about some of the unethical things that get me where I am if I'm not the one doing them. I'm just kind of vaguely supporting them by existing in society. And that's how I feel about Parabola Linux. Now, Trisquel. Trisquel is kind of the same deal. I don't actually know that much about Trisquel. So I'm going to put it in Don't Even Care. I've heard this is what Richard Stallman uses. And on the one hand, like it's Richard Stallman, and he doesn't even know how to install Linux, so it must be pretty easy to use. But on the other hand, he's Richard freaking Stallman. He is a crazy person, and yeah. Okay, I want to save some of these spicy takes, but I'm running out of spicy takes to save. I haven't ever used Slackware, so I can talk about Slackware. Here are my thoughts on Slackware. Probably pretty good if you already know how to use Slackware and you use it all the time for everything. But I'm not a Slackware person, so I have nothing to say about Slackware. I've heard that it doesn't do like dependency management, like the package manager is manual, and that sounds like a little bit of a pain. But like, I'm sure that it's got to be good. I'm sure it's got to be kind of good, right, for people to keep using it. Like it's a thing. Slackware's not dead, right? Who knows? Is Slackware dead? Okay. Next, we gotta talk about something that's actually a little bit relevant. Should I? Okay. First non-Linux, non-Unix operating system on here, I guess. First proprietary thing, Windows 7. Now, Windows 7 is a pretty cool in comparison to no more recent Windows. I don't not like it. If there's got to be a Windows 7 is the Windows. Except, like, when you pirate Windows 10, it puts a watermark. When you pirate Windows 7, nothing works. Like, the drivers won't install. It pops up with a big old warning that you have to close every time it boots up, every time you log in, even. And it's just kind of shit. Like, I have a Windows 7 license with that came with this computer because this computer came with Windows 7, but like if I didn't, then that would just be horrible, now wouldn't it? So that's my thoughts on Windows 7. Like it's okay, but I mean everyone who uses, like literally the only people using Windows 7 now are people who haven't upgraded to Windows 10 when it's like one click to do so. So they are a literal noob. Also, it's like literally deprecated. You're not supposed to use it. It's an old operating system now. Also, fun fact, Windows Vista and Windows 7 are basically the same. They like changed the wallpaper and cleaned up a little bit of the animations and re-released the same operating system. It's like they're like almost as close as Windows 10 and 11 are to each other. 7 and Vista. It's just that Vista came out when everybody's computers were made for XP. And 7 came out on brand new computers that could actually take all of the extra bloat. Those are my thoughts on Windows 7. It was good for its time comparatively, but like it doesn't actually hold up that well anymore. And that's a little bit sad, but it is what it is. Okay. Debian. I'll talk about Debian or Debian. So, Debian Linux is probably the most solid distro that's out there. It's easy, or it's not easy. It seems like it's pretty easy to base a distro on it. Just look at Ubuntu and all of its clones and flavors and spin-offs. But the thing with Debian is that like it's just kind of mid. Like apt, it isn't the slowest, it's not the fastest. The all of the stuff in the repos is super old, and you can get like testing and stuff like Ubuntu to get newer software. You can use app images or flat packs or whatever. But like it's still just, excuse me, it's never going to be as fast as other things. Or never going to, it's recently updated. So I give Debian an A tier just for its historical relevance, I guess. Just kidding. We're moving it to D tier. Don't use it. Use something based on it. Debian is kind of fine, but why would you burden yourself like that? All right. CentOS. I've never used CentOS either. I have heard that it's like it's the free version of RHEL, and which is like slower updated, which is like the Debian of Fedora. So it's like Fedora but crustier and older, like Debian timeline packages on on an RPM based system. And that sounds fine. It's probably okay for servers if you want. If you really, really like RPM packages, I don't. I'm neutral on them. So, yeah, no opinion on CentOS either. And we are down to almost interesting things. Kali Linux, I'm just going to put it in E tier. Everyone who uses Kali Linux either knows what they're doing and won't care about the tier list, or they're an absolute noob who just downloaded it because for some reason it keeps popping up on lists of distros for noobs to use, even though it definitely shouldn't be because it's like for the exact opposite. It's on Kali's website. They're like, please do not use this if you are brand new to Linux. This is for professionals who already know what they're doing. It's just purely for ease of use, so you don't have to install all the things. Like, don't use Kali Linux. Big old PSA there. If you're in like a forum for noobs and you're answering questions like I was a couple years ago, you see that somebody's using Mint or Ubuntu or Elementary or I don't know, even Solus, even Manjaro. You're like, yeah, I'll answer their question. They probably they probably just are having a bad day and can't figure things out. If they say they're using Kali Linux, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole because they have no idea they do not know how to read, they do not know English, straight up. There is no way to communicate with these people. If you bluster past all of the warning signs, like I know it's not super obvious. Like if you do absolutely no research into your first distro and you just pick Kali because some listicle said Kali because it's AI generated or whatever, back when that was like not as much of a buzzword, so people weren't as aware of it. Like if somebody asks for advice and they're using Kali Linux, you run. There was no communication with a noob using Kali Linux. That is my thoughts on that. Probably most of the users of Kali Linux are noobs, and are just having problems with this stuff, or they get excited like, I want to be a super hacker man or whatever. No, you don't. You want to have a decent idea of what you're doing first, so you should use Mint or Ubuntu or just jump into Arch already. With that note, let's talk about Manjaro. Manjaro is an amazing distro. S tier. No thoughts. Okay. MX Linux is #1 on Distro Watch. Okay, seriously though, Manjaro, don't leave. I gotta talk about Manjaro here. So, Manjaro is a cool idea executed mediocrely that just attracts way too much drama for whatever reason. I'm tempted to put Manjaro in F tier because that's like the tide of public opinion has turned against it. Because like there are problems with using Manjaro. Manjaro has done a couple sketchy things. Most of the controversies that Manjaro is in are their fault. And it's always fun. Manjaro was like the lol cow of Linux distros. Okay, it's amusing. It's amusing to watch it go. For what it's trying to do, which is like a self-contradictory thing, it's not good. There are a lot of distros, stuff like Endeavor OS and Reborn OS and even Garuda, that try to do some or all of the things that Manjaro is doing, and they actually do them way, way better. So I'm just going to put Manjaro over here in E tier. Because, also Arco Linux. Let's not forget about Arco Linux. Has all the same stuff as Manjaro pre-installed, except with more options in the installer, like for free, and that's it. The only people who use Manjaro are people who haven't heard of what Manjaro has done, at least in current year. Back in the before time when I got into Linux, which was like 3 years ago, or four maybe at this point. Wow, has it been 4 years? That's crazy. Sorry, my nose itches, by the way. I'm not sure why. Probably because I keep scratching it. That would do it. Manjaro, Manjaro goes in E tier. Okay, MX Linux for real this time. MX Linux is going to go in C tier along with Elementary OS. Now, the reason I'm putting MX in C tier is that MX Linux it's like if you took the idea of Ubuntu and ran it through like a Latin translator 4 times, because it's like everything in it just feels old. Like it's Debian based, and it's got this weird stuff where it doesn't use proper systemd. Like uses like the pre-systemd init system, like just the one that's just called init, but then it like starts up systemd as like not process one, like as process 2 or 3 or something, to use because like most of the things that Debian does rely on systemd nowadays. So in order to still work with modern, yeah, sysv init, that's the one, or system 5 or whatever they want to call it. It uses like it tries to be this, oh, we're like neutral on systemd. No, you're not. You just use systemd, but in a worse way. Um, and like practically speaking, it works exactly the same as any other Debian-based distro. It's got a couple neat tools that are pre-installed. I've never quite gotten them all to work right, but the theming is decent if a little archaic. I give MX Linux a solid C tier. Um, the reason it's #1 on DistroWatch, by the way, is because everybody forgets about it and they go look at the page, and of course that ticks the number up. And then and then they forget about it because it's not that remarkable of a distro. And so someone later will mention, "Oh, hey, did you hear MX Linux is #1 on DistroWatch?" Like, MX Linux? I gotta go on DistroWatch and check out what the deal is with MX Linux, and then page ticks up, and that's why MX is #1 on DistroWatch, and it's just kind of a stupid little cycle. Okay, mostly heavy hitters down here now. Welcome to the stream, anybody who's here. All right, I should probably talk about other stuff. Temple OS. I wanted to have a bigger audience for this, but also I don't care enough at this point. Temple OS is a solid S tier distro. I am not going to pull another Manjaro and like drag it all around after that. No, Temple OS is legitimately a very, very cool project and piece of software. Absolutely insane level of effort. And the story of Terry A. Davis is, it's a tragedy. It's a miserable tragedy, but it's also like a triumph of just sheer genius, in spite of and like spurred on by like utter delusion. The guy wasn't perfect, but I think most of the bad things he did were because of his illness, and I'm willing to put all of the good he did, which basically was the operating system. Like he poured his whole life into this thing. It went by other names first. It was called Luz before before he went schizo and got into all the like Christian stuff. But if ever a piece of software was to be the temple of God, it would be Temple OS. I mean, just writing your own operating system, that is amazing. And yeah, sure, it kind of looks like shit. It kind of doesn't really work on real hardware. It kind of is like very, you kind of already have to know everything about how it works in order to use it. But who cares? It's freaking Temple OS and it's awesome. It's like Emacs booted onto bare metal. Well, without Lisp. Actually, it's not a Lisp. It's not a true Lisp machine OS. Maybe I'll put it down. No, but yeah, Holy C. Yeah. I'm gonna have to put it in S tier because like none of these other OSs are also Lisp. So what could ever top it? Okay. Now it's time to talk about other distros. I never actually talked about OpenSUSE. I was about to. All right. OpenSUSE is the distro where when I'm not using it, I think, oh yeah, OpenSUSE, that was kind of okay, but I did never really got the point of it. And when I am using it, I'm thinking, oh, this is fine, but I could also be using anything else that I know how to work a little bit better. So I'm going to put OpenSUSE in D tier down here with Parabola and Debian. I'm realizing that Parabola should probably go a little bit lower. Let me put Parabola down in F tier, because Debian and OpenSUSE are now like starting to think that like the whole concept of the tiers is a little bit flawed. But that's okay. OpenSUSE also, like, for some reason, everyone who's ever worked on OpenSUSE has been either sketchy or like has neutral to negative feelings about the operating system. For example, one of the file system options for OpenSUSE is riserfs, and the whole one of the weird thing riserfs, it's like btrfs but a little bit worse. It was made by Hans Reiser, who murdered his wife. Not even I'm not even gonna joke about that. Like, what I will say is that like that's weird, right? Like, the guy who worked at the system that owns OpenSUSE was like the primary development platform for this file system. Like, he murdered his wife. She went missing. He denied that anything. He denied everything. You know, he said, "Oh, I don't know where she is." You know, whatever. And then they like found her in a dumpster like four blocks away from his house. And he denied anything. And then like eventually they finally caught him. Also, the file system is the Wikipedia article I just skimmed said that they were going to remove it from Linux. I don't know if that's actually happened yet, but yeah, it's just a bit dodgy. Also, if you've seen Brian Lunduke, he was on YouTube for a while. He's the one who does the Linux Sucks talk every year. A couple years ago, he like decided to go private, so he like pulled all of his stuff off of YouTube and put it behind his like own paywalled website, and he posts memes on Reddit occasionally. They're like boomer Linux memes. I find that Lunduke has a very soothing voice, but I don't like. But like, he doesn't say much of substance, even though his opinions are like broadly right. Like, he's right, he's just not good at explaining himself, but he is good at just kind of talking, you know. I wish I were good at just kind of talking, you know. Anyway, he worked on OpenSUSE, and that was kind of his take. So I'm paraphrasing from him. I just think it's kind of weird. Like, nobody who's had anything to do with OpenSUSE likes it, and that's saying something. Okay, time for talking about. I'm running out. I'm running out of inconsequential OSs to talk about, and there's a couple distros that should be on here that aren't, and I don't know how to add them. Like, can I try? Hey, blah, 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 I don't want to. Okay. Right. All right. We'll talk about Mac OS. Mac OS is sort of a BSD, but also kind of not. It's it's weird, but more familiar than you might think, because it's based on. It is a Unix-based OS nowadays. It wasn't actually until Mac OS 10, which was like early 2000s. Before that, it was a completely different architecture based on just whatever Apple wrote in the 70s. They just kept extending. It was like completely reverse model. It was like object oriented in the like everything is a GUI layer kind of sense, almost like a browser, but like as an operating system, but like running on hardware. When they switched to Mac OS 10, they rebased it onto Unix, and it was like in order to run like Mac OS 9 or earlier apps, you had to everything's GUI exactly. In order for you to be able to run older Mac apps that hadn't been recompiled for Unix, you had to basically open a Mac OS 9 virtual machine, and this was like built into the OS. You can, I think there's like a Linus Tech Tips video where they look at one of those old like eMacs, like an old eMac or something, or iMac, with like the bulge looks like it's coagulated rather than cast, and it's just kind of, I don't know. They're all profoundly ugly computers, but the interesting thing about Mac OS 10 is like just how long they kept it where it was. Um, they've started incrementing the numbers again. They went from 10.0 to 10.15, and then Mac OS 11. With the new MacBooks, they started shipping Mac OS 11 for the ARM architecture. I guess because it's marked by like an architecture change now, except now like Mac OS 12 is also a thing. But like they're literally just Mac OS 10 recompiled with a couple new features. I don't understand how this like numbering scheme works, but it's whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm giving Mac OS 10 specifically, but also everything after, a B tier. It's fine. Mac OS 10 is fine. Use it if you want. It's not better than Linux Mint. It's more usable than OpenBSD, but like it's like the opposite of OpenBSD. It's like the complete opposite of, like, OpenBSD is like super secure and server side centric, and Mac OS is like super user focused and GUI centric. Not that one OS can't do both things, but like they've certainly min-maxed themselves in opposite in their very different directions. But I think for what they're trying to do, Mac OS, solid B tier. Most of the things you would ever want to do with a computer, you can do on Mac OS. And that's certainly better than I can say about Windows 10. Windows 10. Oh, Windows 10. Everyone who uses Windows 10 is either a noob or a pro, but nobody really likes it, so I'm going to put it in the same category as OpenSUS. Honestly, above like a certain hardware threshold, Windows 10 really isn't that bad. That sounds like heresy, and I know it's heresy. Um, I don't completely stand by that, but the hardware threshold to get Windows 10 to work good is a lot higher than for like any Linux distros. It's just not a well optimized OS. It's not made for it's not made for 10-year-old computers. And that's kind of sad because it does have promise. There are good things about Windows 10. Like, for example, PowerShell. PowerShell is a fantastic language and environment. Um, it's also exploited to shit because it's way too powerful for Windows. Updates break out of nowhere. That does happen sometimes. You can just disable updates. Use Chris Titus debloat tool. Let me see. Chris Titus Tech has. Oh wait, no. Okay, that's a weird. Wait, no, it's just ChrisTitus.com. I know this. Yes, this guy. This guy, Chris Titus. He's got a YouTube channel. Um, he does this in your own ISO. Okay, cool. Wait, okay. Alright, so apparently it's moved over here. So he's got this big old tool that you can just run on a Windows install, and it does most of your stuff. It doesn't have everything I want, or at least it didn't last time I tried it, but it is pretty cool. It is pretty useful, and it's written in 100% PowerShell. So let me just actually CFG. Okay, when you tilde up PS1. Oh. Anyway, PowerShell is a good language. I swear it's a good language. All of this UI, pure PowerShell. Very underrated, but also overrated for malware. Like any language can be used for evil, but like it takes a good language to be used for good. I don't know what I'm saying. All right, Gentoo Linux. Here are my thoughts on Gentoo Linux. D tier. Same level as Windows 10 and OpenSUSE. Reason being that any performance benefit you gain from compiling everything yourself is more than outweighed by the deficit of time it takes to compile. Also, like dependency management, interacting with the use flag system it turns into dependency hell, and it's just like the more returns you want, the less time you have to use them. I just don't see the point of Gentoo. What I do see the point of is Arch. Arch Linux is solid. I give it an A tier. It's not perfect. There's of course always some community drama, but Arch Linux, it's just there. Like you leave it, it keeps working. You update it. Sometimes something breaks, but usually not. The package manager, it feels super fast. It's probably not that much faster than others, but it feels faster. And that's all it needs to do. Where is Nix? I don't see it on this stupid list. How to add to tier maker? I want to know, how do I add to tier maker? Oh, you have to use a Twitter account. I'm not I'm not making a Twitter account. I'm not doing this. Um, okay, since you asked, Nix is going to go in D tier. I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it's like wonderful. I'm sure it's the best thing ever for once you've got it all set up already. Same with GUIX or geeks. I refuse to call it geeks. That's not how it's pronounced. It's GUIX. That should not be pronounced geeks. It's GUIX. Nix and GUIX both get a D tier simply because until you make that config file, it's basically unusable. And like the configuration language is just running shell commands anyway. Like literally making a shell script to set up Arch the way you want it does everything that Nix and GUIX do, except you can actually do it, and it's easy and it doesn't take time because you can literally just check your history for what you did the last time you set up Arch and just copy that into a file, maybe fix the white space here and there, combine like extraneous commands, and you've got yourself a reproducible system. I know there are reasons that using Nix or GUIX can be better than Arch with a setup script, but none of those cases are something that I would ever run into, and I think most people would ever run into. I mean, I'm not saying you're dumb if you go and set up Nix or GUIX the exact way you want. Like, that's cool, go for it, but I would not bother. I have tried bothering and it didn't really work. I just couldn't get into it. And that's why I formed my opinion, just out of sheer laziness. Arch with yeah. See, Arch with install script is it's just so simple. You just copy your bash history, and that's the install script. Fedora. Fedora is also very solid. I'm going to put Fedora up in A tier with Arch Linux. There are things that Fedora is bad at, like where I live, the package downloads are super slow, and it always needs to refresh the metadata, and that always like takes 5 minutes, like five entire whole minutes to refresh the package cache, which it has to do like every time you install anything. But at the same time, Fedora just works. It's like what Ubuntu wishes it were. With that note, Ubuntu gets a B tier along with Mint and macOS. Ubuntu is fine, but it's not quite fine. It's mostly just very okay. Ubuntu server I'd probably put in A tier, but I think they mean Ubuntu desktop. The Ubuntu font is an S tier font, but Ubuntu, the desktop distro, gets a B tier. It's a bit slow. Snaps are as much of an issue as not snaps. Like, if you're going the route of caring about snaps, there is no good way to do it. I find that too much stuff in Ubuntu is snaps, and too much in Mint that works on Ubuntu as a snap just doesn't work because they disallow snaps. Honestly, the whole snap debate is stupid. Just use Flatpaks, like Fedora. Be like Fedora. Fedora's up here. Fedora is like... No, I feel like no matter how popular Fedora ever gets, it'll be underrated. Like, if all of the Linux distros just suddenly vanished, except for Fedora, the world would be fine. Not better off, but just the same. Also, Fedora, like, it integrates new technologies fine. It doesn't really have any unique, weird, squiggly fiddliness from upstream like Ubuntu does, or certainly any of the other distros. It's the exact opposite of Manjaro. It's like if Arch had an installer and worked under the hood a bit more like Debian. Also, like CentOS and RHEL are based on Fedora. Fedora is basically the testing for that, so it's got a big company behind it. It's got the Red Hat Corporation or whatever. and they're they might be a little bit evil, but they also make GNOME and Network Manager and Pipewire and Systemd, which are all very big projects that, for what they are, work pretty well. Um, and what they are is big buggy messes. Like as a big buggy mess, GNOME works pretty well. Systemd is pretty good nowadays. I've heard it was bad when it launched, but it's fine now, right? It's fine now. All right, Fun2. It's just Gentoo for people who don't want to bother with Gentoo. Like, why would you ever use Fun2? Just want to be a Gentoo user, but a fake Gentoo user. It says it says it's supposed to stand for Fun Gentoo, but it actually just stands for fake Gentoo. That's my thoughts on Fun2. Literally no reason to use it. Same with Redcore or any of those other ones that are also just Gentoo but with an installer and binary packages. Void Linux. Void Linux is a C tier. I'm putting Void Linux in C tier because it's like Arch but independent. It's not noob or gaming oriented like Solus is. It's more power user oriented, but Void also just I don't know, sometimes they don't update, sometimes they do. Their installer is a little bit janky, but it's better than Arch's broken, buggy thing. I haven't checked in a year. I don't know if it's still broken and buggy. Was last time I checked, which, like I said, was a year ago. Arch should not have gone with the installer thing. They should have just said, oh, you've got to just follow the wiki instructions. And that's what Gentoo is doing, and it's a decent gatekeep, even though Void has problems. Everything has problems with Hyperland except Arch. Arch is literally the only distro that works with Hyperland. Fun fact, this computer that I'm running right now, which is the same one I'm running my web server and everything off of, is I installed Ubuntu on it years ago. GCC version error. So that's the thing. Nothing except Arch has the right libraries for Hyperland. You can like try and install them on other distros, but it doesn't work. So anyway, I was running Ubuntu on this computer, and I've got all my stuff set up on Ubuntu to run at boot and everything. And I didn't want to copy that over to an Arch system that I'm gonna have to update every day, and it's gonna break all the time and stuff. It's gonna be nasty. You can't do high uptimes on Arch. You can on Ubuntu. So I installed Bedrock Linux. I made a video about that, and the audio kind of sucked, and I tried to fix it on Audacity, and apparently it didn't fix well enough. But yeah, you can use. So the version of Hyperland I'm running on here is the Arch version, which is compiled against Arch, all the Arch libraries and stuff. But I have Arch and Ubuntu on this machine in parallel. I think this is the Arch version of my browser, but it's the Ubuntu version of most things. Like if I open Wofi here, this is the Ubuntu version of Wofi, definitely. I like the themes. Arch has native package for Hyperland. That is cool. I think I'm still in the AUR version. No, I think I actually custom compiled it because like I was getting crashes when I was streaming, when I moused over this window or something. Something would cause it to crash, so I ended up not doing that. And so I went to file a bug report, and the first item on the bug report was like, make sure that you're not using a package. Make sure that you actually like compiled it manually and are running the latest Git version with no patches or packaging systems or anything. It's like, okay, I guess I better do that. And so now I'm doing that. I haven't updated it in a couple weeks. All right, last distro that's actually on here, and then we're just going to have to kind of do a Q&A for the rest of them. FreeBSD. FreeBSD is solid C tier, no, B tier, high C tier, above MX. There we go. I like FreeBSD. It actually works on this computer completely, like it installs and the graphics work and everything, which is crazy and surprising. But FreeBSD is a lot like Linux. It's... Excuse me, I am tired. I've been awake for a reasonable number of hours, and apparently that's too much. I woke up at 9 this morning. I've only been awake for 11 hours. Why is my body doing this to me? But yeah, no, FreeBSD, very solid operating system. It's not Linux, it's not Arch, it's not Fedora. It's certainly no Temple OS, but it is kind of pretty neat. Let's see, I already talked about Nix and GUIX. Oh yeah, Bedrock Linux, insofar as it counts as a distro, goes in S tier. Bedrocklinux.org. Absolutely wonderful. Very, very, very cool. And that is, yeah, it lets you run other distros together with each other without having to like dual boot or do any weird funky user level stuff. Bedrock Linux is an S tier. Now, what else must needs did I talk about? Windows 11. Windows 11 goes in E tier because Windows 11 is just Windows 10 but a little bit worse and stuff. What else? Okay, Endeavor OS and Arco Linux and Reborn OS and most of those other Arch but with an installer, Calamarch, those kinds of things. Those are all going to go in B tier for being what Manjaro tried to do but actually working. That is my opinion on the Arch but with an installer type of distros. They're about as good as Ubuntu. I mean, it's just Arch, but you don't have to install it yourself. And it's got a little bit more bloat than Arch, but it's fine. Alpine Linux. Alpine Linux goes in A tier. It's like OpenBSD, but it's Linux based. It's a little bit different from normal Linux distros, but it's just so light and neat and smooth. I don't see any reason to put it any lower than A tier for Alpine Linux. Very cool. Ubuntu Touch goes in F tier. It breaks my phone. This phone right here, this is a Poco M3. I bought it a couple of years ago and I used it for over a year. Very solid phone. Not the fastest, but it does have the biggest battery. It's like 6,000 milliamp hours or something ridiculous. I'm pretty sure it's 6,000. Anyway, this phone, I upgraded to a Pixel 6 because I needed to be able to use... I needed to be able to like do things fast. Like for my job, I had to be able to call my boss quickly, and it just took too long to task switch on this phone, which is why I bought a new phone for $600 when this one only cost like $200, and I asked for it for my birthday, so I didn't even have to pay that. But yeah, Ubuntu Touch finally works on this phone, except that when you reboot, it like loses it, and it just has no operating system, and it takes ages to like install Android back on this thing because there's so many different steps you have to do. And I'm just tired of it. So Ubuntu Touch goes in F tier. If it works okay. It's not the best OS, but it's okay. All right. Android. Android goes in Android goes in B tier, along with Ubuntu and macOS. Android and macOS are very similar in that they're like pretty widely used Unix-based OSs that are very GUI oriented, but surprisingly solid underneath. I like Android. I like the idea of Android. The execution is very solid usually. Um, the degree to which Google exerts control over Android is, of course, worrying, but like other than that, and if you get like a de-Googled Android, it's basically the perfect operating system for a touchscreen device. Also, you can use Termux on Android and like basically do all of your Linux stuff. It's got like a little natively recompiled user level, like user mode Ubuntu system or inside of Termux. And you can like run Emacs in it and everything. That's cool. By the way, there is an Android app for Emacs that's native now that like does the native GUI stuff on Android, but it sucks because it can't access files, it can't access the internet. It like it's the worst of both worlds. The You don't actually need to run it in SSH. You can just run it inside of Termux. All like native, like the actual package. It's compiled for Android. It's in the repos, and that's what I use to take notes in. Actually, it's pretty okay. Very very. It's like an extra medium kind of shirt size sort of a thing. What else? Um, Obscure distros. There's Devuan. Devuan gets an F tier. It's the same level as Parabola. Like it's literally just a protest distro that's not even good. No point. They didn't put NetBSD on here. NetBSD. I would also put NetBSD in A tier along with Arch and Fedora and Alpine Linux. NetBSD, it's BSD, but it runs on everything, every possible device in existence. Oh, Artix. I'm gonna put Artix in C tier. I want to like Artix. I've used Artix for a long time. Like my main OS was Artix, but sometimes you don't want to bother with working out how Runit wants to do things, and you just want to follow the instructions for a systemd that somebody put in their obscure software that you want to run. So yeah, Artix's like only unique point is that it doesn't have systemd, or it's like the other, it's like Endeavor but without systemd. But also like the worst part about it is that it doesn't have systemd, so it's a wash really. Like it's just Arch, like because systemd is a big part of what makes Arch so usable, is like how Arch has integrated systemd, and you rip that out, and none of the Artix inits are like particularly bad, but like Running is my favorite because basically it just starts everything in parallel and everything is a shell script and it's really nice and simple. Whereas OpenRC, which is also what Gentoo uses, is kind of bad. But yeah, Runit. Void also uses Runit. Void is fine. Like not having systemd is the least of Void's problems in my opinion. But Arctics, it's the biggest problem. Because, again, like, some things, it's nice to just hack up a shell script and have it work. But other things, it's nice to just do the systemd command and have it work. Arctics Linux goes in C tier. Hrel, RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. I'm going to put it in D tier along with Debian and OpenSUSE. It's paid. Enough said. Oh, Puppy Linux. I gotta talk about Puppy Linux. Puppy Linux is I don't know if you've seen what's it called? Puppy Linux.org probably. They're all .orgs usually. Wait, page index. This is weird. I don't think this is quite right. Where is the actual website for Puppy Linux? Why can't I find it? Oh, puppylinux.com. They got a .com. I'm proud of them, the little guys. Puppy Linux is a solid little recovery distro. I've used it as like a base to install Gentoo before. It's fun to like play around and see how they do different things, but like my problem with Puppy Linux is that it's not like it's not actually that much lighter than most other distros, and the links that goes to be light are just not necessary, and the links that goes to be different apart from that are just confusing. So I'm gonna put Puppy Linux in C tier. Antics. Now Antics is like the little brother or something of, it's the annoying cousin of MX. And I'm gonna also put Antics in C tier. It's like Puppy Linux but less interesting because it's also Debian based. I've wanted to like Antics, but not enough to actually care about it. Now, what other... Oh dear. Hang on, I'm getting a call. Just a second. Okay, so I just got a call. I don't know if you could hear that, but I guess they couldn't hear me, so they're just gonna have to text me, and I hope they do because now I'm all confused. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, Antics. I mentioned Antics. They're just also it's one letter off from Arctics, which makes it confusing. What else is there to even... Okay, I'm gonna end the stream now because I keep getting this call. Goodbye. I think I'm back. Are we back? I'm back. I know. Are you back? I'm back. I am the only one who is back. Not yet. End me not yet. Let me go to workspace number 5 and just pull up Discord. This is a bad idea, and I shouldn't have done it, but I'm gonna do it. It doesn't matter. Arco, if you're still around, I'm not done. I forgot to press the confirm dialogue for ending thing, so we're still alive, still going. I don't really have that much more to say though, so that's gonna basically do it for me. Oh no, hang on. Discord, go away, Minasan. I'm looking, because like, if I go over here. Aw, thanks. Okay. Wait, hang on. What? Discord's birthday. That's stupid. I don't care about freaking Discord's birthday. I don't want... Wait, what? Where is... I don't care. I care not for thy puny idiocies. I'm not gonna get nitro, you bech. Okay, this is disaster. I'm very confused by that. Okay, whatever. Close that. Go back, doesn't matter. Alright, well the stream isn't over, but it's basically over at this point, right? Alright. You know what? No. No, the stream is not over. I want to write my Luke Smith article on distros. So I'm just gonna do it. Give it a couple seconds to... Okay, there it goes. Alright. There we are. Got a Emacs. Alright, fun fact. You can put katakana in URLs. That is a thing you can do. Alright, so I basically want to hardware Emacs. I guess this isn't so much a hardware thing as it is a... There it goes. Okay, you gotta just add spaces and it'll readjust itself. Nice. Come on, finish writing the file. Okay, there it goes. I don't care. Yeah. Okay, I guess I'm just gonna write a news. this isn't gonna be good. I was thinking I was gonna do that, I was gonna be good, but now I'm seeing it's like probably not gonna be. So I'm gonna just quit while I'm ahead, or quit before I get any further behind. And that's gonna be it. Thank y'all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, for real.